I believe that every good piece of art should have a form of visual tension. You know, it draws you in, it captivates you as a viewer and also as a maker. You know, I mean, that's what one of the things that I really enjoy about making art is trying to make it work. You know, the process is very, very important. As you can see, this is a tree trunk. I chose this particular piece right here because of its curvature. It's a really unusual bend, you know, and you don't normally see something like that in a tree, you know, tree branch. I used the fiberglass cloth, which is very common. You can get it at any store, any hardware store, and then some gel with hardener, and then I just brush it on. The goal is to make a series of casts that gonna end up looking something like that. And so I'll end up with this really unusual, curvy, gnarly looking root that can't really identify. The reason I like this type of material is because it has these visual connections to other things. Honey, skin, you know, it has this really unusual amber color that is really inviting and a little bit fusing too, because it may become perhaps a little repulsive to someone, but at the same time it becomes sort of attractive and familiar. I'm not 100% sure if this will work, but I'm hoping that I can connect these four limbs in an interesting way. The intrigue is very much part of the game, I guess. I try to utilize natural materials in my work, but I prefer to juxtapose the natural elements of these things next to things that are more synthetic, man-made, if you will. And so with this one, I have the basis for the, you know, for the material itself, which is a root ball. This is a mulberry tree, and I trimmed it a little bit. And so my goal is to add a more synthetic-looking, plastic-looking paint, blue or some, you know, bright orange or something like that. And so the goal is for this thing, once it's displayed on the wall, it will look sort of synthetic, but you can still see that it's a natural element. I like that tension that's being created by positioning these two things side by side or integrated in different ways. I'm trying to make these materials, these elements, have a conversation. The use of these natural elements it's already strange enough because it's a little bit unconventional. When you think of sculpture, you think of, you know, metal and stone, you know, public sculpture, but there's also an element of delicacy, you know, that's lost, that, you know, the finesse that is somewhat underappreciated, I guess, in three-dimensional work, you know, and I try to utilize that in my work as well. You know, I like delicate things that are kind of fragile, that could perhaps break. I am originally from Valparaiso, Chile. There's always a connection to where you came from. So for me, one of the things that I really treasured was my relationship with my grandfather, because he was the one that sort of took me under his wing. He was a civil engineer, and so he had lots of tools, and he taught me how to use many of them. I mean, he taught me how to weld when I was 10. I could barely lift the thing, you know, and come on, kid, you need to learn how to do this. And so, you know, he showed me a bunch of stuff. The majority of my work revolves around the idea of immigration. The visual metaphors that I continue to utilize in my work referring to immigration, this is why I choose to use natural materials, seeds, roots, branches, mud. These things relate to this idea of transplantation and literally taking an object, a living object, from one place to another really, I think, started the whole thing for me. There is a piece at the American Craft Council, and it's entitled Bastones para Rob. Literally, it means canes, you know, like a walking cane for Rob. And Rob works at a quarry, and he pulled these roots out of the ground. And they are very organic, a lot of movement, lots of twists and turns. I made these structures that are two pieces of wood, one at the end and another one on the top. So the wood itself is somewhere in the middle. And then in the transitional areas where the new wood joins the wood, there's a band of copper. The copper is a material that resonates with me a lot because my country of origin, Chile, is the #1 producer of copper in the world. And so the thought that maybe there is a piece of my land in this particular piece of copper is, it's a way for me to utilize my own, a piece of my land, if you will.
The American Craft Council is a nonprofit organization that champions craft in America. At the American Craft Council, we deal with a lot of artists who are working in a lot of traditional media. And one of the things that's been exciting to me about Alonso's work is the way that he pretty easily moves in between a variety of different materials in the creation of his sculptures. His work kind of transcends a media-specific approach.
Alonso's a very thoughtful artist. Every piece that he has tells a story. And so our challenge to him was to take these materials from a gym which was relocating. They were just going to discard materials and sort of upcycle that material into a new piece. And so this Samothrace represents a woman's figure and the body and this whole idea of fitness, and the bottom of it, you can see it represents movement. It also resembles the bottom of a shoe, and so he really internalized this whole process and what those materials meant to make them into something new.
With age comes wisdom, as you know, and so all the mistakes that I've made in the studio have paid off because you learn from those mistakes, and you make them work. There's also a sense of patience that develops with age, and so I think the work has evolved in a positive way. I consider myself a very lucky man because I've always known what I wanted to do ever since I can remember. So it's always been making something.
Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.